More and more bombshell information continues to come out after this UN General Assembly took place in Manhattan, New York. As you can see here, the Argentine president accused Obama of treason in her speech to the UN. She stated that the Obama administration had sent Gary Samore, who is now the former White House coordinator for arms control and weapons of mass destruction. He requested that Argentina provide enriched nuclear fuel to Iran in 2010. Samore did not dispute this claim. She stated that when she asked for written and signed approval of this deal, Samore was never heard from again. Now, Samore did release a statement admitting that he had made the request in 2010 and Argentina balked at the deal. He also admitted that he approached France and Russia with a similar proposal. Those deals did not go through either. So the next time you hear Obama talking about gun control and wanting to take your guns or anything like that, just remember he has been actively trying to supply Iran with enriched uranium as far back as 2010. Not surprisingly, the White House has not responded to these claims at this time. Now, I'm going to leave a link here for this video that has the entire speech of this president, but there is even more bombshell information here that hasn't been covered yet. Now, she states here that she'd like to congratulate herself and the United States of America and Iran as well as the remaining members of the permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany, right? On account of their having reached an agreement on nuclear matters that helped to loosen up the situation. So she's stating that there was an agreement reached that we don't know about yet and provides increased security and safety in a world shrouded in conflicts and warmongering. We are aware of these negotiations and harbored hopes that this agreement will eventually see the light of day. Now, she goes on here to talk about everything I just told you about with this whole situation that went down. This is actually a pretty interesting speech, to say the least. I watched it a couple times. I encourage you to go through and watch it yourself. You can cut forward to about 16-minute 47 mark is where it starts to get interesting. Now, the Argentine president went on to tie this nuclear situation with Iran into an attack that happened in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1994 on a Jewish community center known as the AMIA. It was suicide bombed and 85 people were killed and more than 300 people were injured. Now, she also went on to talk about Alberto Niesman, who was the intrepid federal prosecutor who spent a decade investigating this bombing, this case. Now, he concluded that Iran was behind this attack and that the Argentine government had been involved in an active cover-up to withhold the blame from Iran so that they could secure trade relations. Now, Niesman was shot and killed on January 18th earlier this year, the day before he was scheduled to present his 300-page report and testify before Argentina's Congress. And I remember when this went down, and it was a professional hit, the way that they got into his apartment, the way the security was set up at his apartment. Now, he had been convinced that the Argentine president herself was involved and implicated in this cover-up. Okay, so now she's talking about what took place in 1994 and referring back to what happened in 93, right? Right here she states other governments had intervened. There had been other developments. She doesn't really state who these other governments were or are, how they had intervened, what they had done, and what these other developments are, but it is very interesting to note here. Now here she's talking about how Argentina's been trying to negotiate with Iran for a simple agreement of this judicial cooperation to have these 5 Iranian citizens extradited. But this is being prevented by Iran. And she's asking why. Why is this being prevented? And she says she heard the answer here in the words of another president when he referred to the hypocrisy in the diplomatic relations. Lots of hypocrisy blended with lots of geopolitics and very little interest in setting the record straight. Now, they sent this bill, this treaty to Congress, which was approved by Congress, and she fervently wished that President Obama's Congress and the U.S. Congress will approve this agreement, or at least refrain from blocking it, because it will be a major contribution to global peace. Now, she states that they can only appeal to the goodwill of Iran at this point for trying to set the record straight and send these guys back, bring them to justice. Now, she states here that there have been developments in her own country, and they're underway right now. They're taking action. They brought on the grounds of aiding and abetting against the highest ranking authorities and intelligence and judiciary officials that taking part in the AMA case since 1994. This trial is proceeding right now. Now, she's saying that on her orders, she removed from office whole areas of Argentina's intelligence officials by reason of strong suspicion that they had hindered the investigation and opposed precisely the attempts of unblocking the case as going on disposition for the Iranians. So some of these guys that she dismissed have been high-ranking and go as far back as 1972. So she states here that some of these dismissed officials have settled here in the United States. And a few days after the dismissal, Prosecutor Niesman, in charge of the case, passed away. That's a funny choice of words because he was shot in the head. Now, right here, she states that there's an open investigation into the death of Prosecutor Niesman, and some details start to arise that are revealing and even horrific links to external secret services. Maybe is that what she was talking about earlier when she said that other governments had intervened? Bank accounts abroad, relationships with vulture funds that have not been denounced by me, but by members of my country's Jewish community themselves. Now, a few days ago, the U.S. ambassador to their country, Argentina, asked for an explanation about the capacity in which a former member of the intelligence services of Argentina are here in the United States. He was in charge of the entire investigation of the bombing from the outset. And she goes on to talk about where she was in government when this went down, stating that she wasn't nobody, right? Now, the person already in charge of the investigation of the bombing is now in charge of the investigation about the death of the prosecutor. And his total absolute connection with the prosecutor and other characters is being proven. Now, their ambassador to the United States at the time, on instructions from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, submitted 2 letters to the State Department and held meetings with the State Department. Also inquire in which capacity is this person here in the United States? I would say almost protected, but protected we do not know from what or from whom, but he is here. A few days ago, the new prosecutor of the AMIA bombing case asked Interpol to issue a blue notice, which is a notice of the person's whereabouts, so as they have been asking since 2007. They ask every year for the cooperation of Iran. Now they're asking for the cooperation of the United States by prosecutors in their country, Argentina, who know the whereabouts of the official whom everybody refers to as someone closely connected to the case that is even mentioned in the case of concealment. So this person, she's stating right here that there's a person in the U.S. that is former Argentine intelligence that is involved in this bombing case and the cover-up of this bombing case. And he's being hidden in the United States. The Argentines can't get access to him. Nobody knows. They won't say nothing. He's being protected. He's like, a witness protection program kind of a thing, but the real deal. Now, she gets pretty, it gets pretty real right here. Now, she says, you may wonder why she spends so much time on this issue. It's very little compared to the amount of time that organizations paid by vulture funds have devoted in this country to criticize, slander, to offend us as if we were accomplices of the Iranian regime. If we are accomplices of the Iranian regime, then what is President Barack Obama then? Is he too? I think hypocrisy and double standards cannot continue in diplomatic affairs. We cannot continue using weapons. She repeats that multiple times. Now, in her speech here, she goes on to talk about the communications world, this world of internet globalization. There's that word that was spoken so much during these meetings, which they state that this internet globalization, which some dream would enable them to better dominate the entire world, today is also a powerful communication tool for everyone. And for an entire global village, that's funny, where you instantly know what's happening in a particular place immediately. So, therefore, Argentina, her government, will act tirelessly and continue seeking truth and justice of this bombing case, right? Watch how she goes into this. We then ask for the cooperation of the country whose citizens are accused, which is Iran, and of this country, the U.S. So she's saying that Iran is working with the U.S. To prevent this case from moving forward, even though she had been accused and implicated in the death of this prosecutor herself. But that almost makes it look too obvious, don't you think? I mean, would they be that bold? I mean, this guy's openly saying he's he knows Iran's behind it and Argentine government was involved in it and involved in the cover up, and then he turns up dead. That's going to make everyone think that it was the Argentine government that smoked him, when just as easily another agency could come in, take him out, and blame the Argentine government. It's that easy. Everyone's already leaning that way. You know what I mean? So she's stating she's trying to do everything she can. She got rid of everyone that was on that intelligence board, and a lot of them came to the U.S., and now they're under protection. Then, right after she calls out the U.S. and Iran, she talks about how the G20 went down. She couldn't attend because she wasn't feeling good. She talks about how virtually those who confronted the government of Syria, the freedom fighters, where those who had been supported by the entire West, today the freedom fighters are a part of ISIS. And in truth, I want to ask you, I have a big question on how this Islamic group works. Apparently, who finances it? How is it done? Because when you see those frightful scenes where the people slit their throats and where one can clearly see that there are 3 or 4 cameras recording the scenes, those of us who like movies can clearly see that this is not a homemade film as fundamentalist groups or guerrilla groups used to make film, like small camera. No. This is almost cinematography, right? Display. It almost resembles movies by Francis Ford Coppola at times. 4 or 5 cameras, and cameras that are not seen. So it'd be very good if we asked ourselves how and where all this financing is coming from. It would certainly help the world to find clues to combat one of the worst scourges facing humanity today, which are the fundamentalists of any kind, dogmatic, religious, and mainly those that consider the neighbor an enemy and a target to be eliminated. But I do not want to leave this assembly today only on problems of debt and economy, or terrorism attacks and international complicity. You see, I mean, oh man, she called it out there. I mean, she basically, from what I can tell, and you guys can go through and watch the whole thing, but she raised some hell a little bit there, and almost kind of, to me, like, hey, you guys gonna step up to the plate here, or are we gonna have to start talking and spilling the beans about what's going on? So more and more countries and leaders are starting to speak out against what they see is going on. This is the Argentine president speaking at the UN General Assembly, implying and stating that the West is funding ISIS. I mean, she said it right there on the floor of the UN General Assembly. So anyways, I'll leave links. This is Spiro. Thanks for watching.